because we've got a holiday on Monday, and we're going to take the holiday off. Woohoo! Yay! So there will not be class on Monday, but we need to somehow cover all of our Monday material and then come to Tuesday ready for Tuesday's material. You guys have been through a holiday like this in November, so we're going to handle this situation pretty much the same way. So tomorrow, in the afternoon, when you're done with your sprint project, and while you're waiting for one-on-ones and doing different things, tomorrow we want you to go through the material on Training Kit for Monday's lesson, and then jump into the project for Monday's work. So by the time you come on Tuesday, we hopefully have the project wrapped up on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock Pacific time. We will do a 1 hour just quick walkthrough on Monday's material, and then we'll jump into Tuesday's lesson. So yeah, any questions on this holiday weekend? No peer review on Tuesday. I'll go through what the project looks like, either at the end of class, or I might do just a quick kickoff tomorrow afternoon, right after lunch. We'll see what is going to work best for that. But sometime before you get started on Monday's stuff, we will do just a quick look through the project and the objectives and everything. Good questions. Cool. So that is this weekend, and you guys just got back from Christmas break, like a 4-week, 3-week break. I don't even know why we're giving you holidays. And because every school does, I guess. And because I like time off too. So, all right, yes, it is a very important holiday. I apologize. I did not mean to discount that by any means. All right, let's take a look at what we're doing today. So I'm going to share my screen and not my audio anymore. Cool. All right. Today is much better than yesterday. Woohoo! We've just got 2 objectives for today. We're going to take a quick look at React Strap. We won't get too deep into this. Our main focus today will be on styled components, and yeah, which is writing CSS in JavaScript, which is cool. So the React community is, or there's a good chunk of the React community that are very into doing everything in JavaScript that we can. For example, JSX, we're writing HTML in JavaScript. Then we get libraries like styled components, where we get to do CSS in JavaScript. Now, whether or not you choose to make this your de facto styling library is totally up to you. You can use CSS, preprocessors, Bootstrap libraries, or you can go into CSS and JavaScript. This is 100% a personal preference. There's some pros and cons for every system that you use. So I don't know that there's a clear, this is the best path for styling your applications. So personally, I use Sass, and I haven't used styled components in many personal projects. I rarely use Bootstrap. I do a lot of just my own styling write in Sass. So the reason that I do that is I like the separation of my CSS and JavaScript. When I first started learning React, it was hard for me even to move into JSX because I like the separation of HTML and JavaScript. So that's my personal preference. Some die-hard everything in JS React people would have a different opinion and may tell me that different opinion, but that's okay. We all get to choose our own paths. You are the master of your own fate. So today we're going to learn about this. In the future, these decisions on how you architect your projects are completely up to you and your team. But it's definitely good to see these things and know that they exist, and then maybe you'll like it so much that this is all you do when you build React stuff, and that would be awesome. Before we get into the lesson, we're going to just briefly go over the solution code for the higher order component from yesterday. I'm not going to build it, but I've got it built and ready to go for us to look at. So that is right here. So let's pull up the README for day 3. Okay, let's take a look at what we were asked to build. And I have heard all the feedback on this README. I do apologize. We will be working on this at some point in the very near future. So if there's something that you notice even right now, or that you noticed yesterday as you're working through this, that just didn't make sense in the instructions here, please let me know. We have you can just let me know in here somewhere. There is it's probably faster to go here. There is a thread. So what needs to be addressed in the Hawk README? Can't I go to this open in channel? Yeah. So I'll pin this real quick, and it's in the help channel. So if you see something that you don't like in the README and you want to suggest that I fix it when I go through and make these other changes, go to the help channel. It's pinned, and you can add your thoughts in here. So the really great thoughts from a few people already. Thank you very much for helping me out on that. That's where you can go to give a suggestion for this README. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Tasks. Create a post page component in your components/post container directory. And then up to this point, a lot of the logic and everything was handled in app.js. So now that we're going to have 2 separate parts of our application, we want to split the post, everything that has to do with posts, out into this post page component. So the first part of this project was to remove that out of app.js and move everything into post page, and then render your post page in your app.js and make sure that it's working. This just helps us get our app component ready to use the higher order component. So what this should look like is in our post container, we should have a posts page that is holding state, sets our state in the component did mount for the posts. It's going to handle the search post handler, and then render our different parts of our app. search bar, and post container. So that was what we were looking for here in the posts page. So get that split out, and then in app.js, grab that. We render, okay, so this is set up very interestingly. Okay. And that's okay. So our app, I'm going to walk through what this is, how this is set up, and why the person that made this app did it the way that they did. So in our app, we then render our post page, and then we would have just still been export default app, which renders the post page here. And there we go. Then we have our app. I think the data in the solution branch has the wrong images. So ignore the styling, ignore that, that's okay. So there's part one. Now everything was moved out of the app and into post page here. So let's go back to our instructions and let's talk about this high order component. Create a directory called authentication. Inside the directory, create a component called authenticate. Let's go back to master because the instructions are different on master. Okay. If there was discrepancies between your instructions and what the solution code looks like, that's because the instructions are correct on master. So if you were looking at a different branch, then it's quite possible that the changes I made yesterday to the master branch didn't get pushed to that branch. All right, so create a directory called authentication. Inside that directory, create an HOC called authenticate. This is where all the magic is going to happen. This component should be able to take in a component as an argument, and it will return a class component. And so that looks like this. So at this point, we're not passing in two components, and we're not doing any what's the word I'm looking for? Conditional rendering. So at this point, we just want to be able to pass in a component and then return and render that component. Obviously, our authenticate here is built out quite a bit more. So we'll get through these instructions and take a look at that. If it worked right, everything should render. Authenticate will look a lot like this when you're done setting it up. Okay, then we have to go build the login page component. You can design it how you like. In your components directory, create a directory called login and add a new file called login.js. There should be a username input, a password input, and a login button. So let's take a look at login. Okay, so we have a form here, and we've got an input for username, a password, and then a button that says login. And then this login component is a class component that is managing state for the username and password, and then also handling the login function, that inputs are handling that. So I think this was one point that we had a discrepancy right here. The component should invoke the login function in app.js when a user logs in. let's just go right now and change that line. Okay. The component should invoke the login function in login.js. Yay. Is it capital L? Should be capital L. Commit changes. So if that threw you off yesterday, I don't know why it was confusing, because obviously login component should invoke the login function in login.js. So that makes total sense to me. I don't know why some students were confused. Just kidding, just kidding. That's definitely our bad. So that minor typo, I think, threw quite a few people off, and I again apologize for the state of this README. All right, so we've got the login taken care of. Now let's take a look at the local storage stuff. If you got to this point, then you should have done some research to see that we've got, you can call local storage dot set item to add something to local storage. Local storage is what we call a browser API. Browser API. It's just a few things that you can, or it's got some methods that you can run that have some utility to them. So for example, local storage dot, oh, where's my autocomplete? Come on. Window.local storage dot, all right, nope, that's not what I wanted at all. Let's do this in our console here. Window.local storage. And let's take a look at the functions that we have available on the local storage API. So we've got get item, which will look through our local storage and grab an item based on the string you pass into it. So if I had user, if I had a key value pair in local storage with that had a key called user, then I could run local storage.getItem, pass in the user this as a string, and it would get that user. I don't have that right now, so we would have to put something on there. Let's just call it something different, because I think that is what is, it's actually, that's what the HOC is actually going to look for. So we don't have something there. Let's set an item, and let's say penguin. So you can see the little helper up here. Set item is a function. You pass in a key and a value. The key is a string. The value can be anything you want it to be. It could be an object, an array, it could be a function, it could be a string, a number. Let's say 852 is our value for penguin. So now if I go to get item and I pass in penguin, I get the value. But notice that this is a JSON value. So if you want to, a JSON string, if you want to use this as a number, then you now have to parse whatever you're getting back. If this was an object, let's set item here. Let's do count is 852. So if we set that item as an object and then go get our item, then we're now just getting a JSON string. So when you're using local storage, you have to be a little bit careful when you're grabbing items, and you have to parse these. And I think it looks something like, I've done this for a while. Parse, is there parse JSON? Nope. Someone probably knows. All right, how are we parsing this? JSON.parse, thank you. Okay, JSON.parse, and then pass it in. Oh, I don't know if I can do this in the console. That's okay. This is what you would do. Anyways, and then you could get the actual object out of local storage. So how do we know what is in local storage? Well, we can go to our tabs up here, click on application. We're going to drag this out. Usually this is collapsed when you get here without anything selected. So you have to open up local storage, click on that, and now you can see everything that is on local storage. And you can see that the Instagram posts are saved on local storage right here as well. I think these are like the comments and stuff. So there's our penguin object, yay. Cool, so that is local storage. You can do some management here. So we could delete our selected penguin, and then it's gone. Then we'd have to go set our penguin again. And then go back to application. And there's our penguin, yay. So with our project, when we click login and we run this function, we want to set an item to our local storage. And again, we do that by passing in a key and a value. The key in this case is user, and then the value is user, which we're setting right here as from this.state.username. You could just pass in this.state.username here. Either way works. So we click handle submit. We set that to local storage. We reload our window, and that refreshes our page, which reruns our app.js, which will rerun our higher order component and actually let us log in. So that takes us to building out the functionality inside our higher order component and making this work inside our Instagram project. So we're going to extend the functionality of the HOC to conditionally render either the login page or the app component. And that's where this setup gets, on the solution code at least, gets a little bit weird. So there's a couple ways we could do this. In the solution and in the instructions, we set it up like this. So we have our authenticate higher order component. And then in our app.js, we are exporting this piece of code right here. So what is returned from authenticate when we invoke it twice and pass in app and login page? What is this line of code right here? What is this going to evaluate down to? A component, yeah. And the component that is returned from authenticate is an anonymous class component that is rendering either the app or the login page. So this looks a little weird, but we need to understand what's going on here because we're actually going to see this pattern later and when we get to Redux. So when you come to this line and you see that we're exporting a function call, then we have to look at our function to see what it's returning because that's what's going to be exported. So this is a little bit deceiving. We're not actually exporting this component right here. When this comes into our index.js, importing app from app is not actually importing the app component. What would be better is if we said import conditional view from app and then render that. That might be a little bit more descriptive of what's going on right here because we're not importing app. We're exporting from this page whatever this function call returns. So let's go into authenticate and let's see what it returns. So we've got authenticate. We need to invoke it twice. So there's the first function. There's the second. So now what is to the right of our arrow? It's this class right here on line 4. So this is being imported to right here. And then what is this class doing? It's looking at whether or not we're logged in. If we are logged in, then we make sure that we set logged in to true. If we're not logged in, we set it to false. And then we check to see if we are logged in. We render our app component that got passed in. If we're not logged in, then we render our login page. So neither one of these are coming in as this import into index.js. It's this entire class component right here. This class component is in charge of rendering either app or login page, but neither app nor login page make it all the way to the index.js. It's this class right here. We can actually take a look at this in our React DevTools. So wrapping our login form is that anonymous class. So if you click on that anonymous class, then you can see the state that that anonymous class is holding. It's got logged in equals false. So let's look at it. Constructor, this.state, logged in, false. So this class, again, is what makes it to our index.js as conditional view and gets rendered as the top layer component in our application. It's not app. We're not exporting app out of this file. We're exporting whatever authenticate returns, which is the anonymous class. Since logged in is false, then our anonymous class is going inside the render function, is going to return. Remember, we always do, we're going to render some JSX. So logged in is false, we're going to return our login page. And so this anonymous class component right now is rendering the login page. When we sign in, and it refreshes the page, and now our anonymous class component is rendering the app component. What does our app component render? Go to app.js. Our app component renders the post page. Does that flow make a little bit more sense as we talk through it that way? Or are there other questions? Joe says, is it accurate to say that in sequence, you imported app in index.js, app imported authenticate, program reads the export statement of app and notices a call to the imported authenticate. As a result, imported app ends up actually running authenticate first in reference. So we did not import, if you're talking about the app component, we did not import the app component into index.js. We only import whatever is returned from authenticate. Now app is passed into authenticate and rendered by authenticate, but what makes it finally to conditional view right here is this class component. So the flow, what you're describing in your flow is really close, minus that little detail. So one way I'm going to talk about how I would change this up just a little bit for it to make a little bit more sense in our minds, and I'll show you that in just a second. So Jake, you asked, would it have been possible to do export default, authenticate, post page, login page, just all in the post page component? Yes. So yeah, that's a really great question, and I love the way you're thinking. In fact, that's what we're going to do right now. And because the way it's flowing right now just is a little wonky, right? A little bit confusing. So let's try it this way. Well, actually, yeah, we'll just do this. So we're going to export app out of here. Now in our index.js, we really are getting app from app, right? We're not getting that anonymous function anymore from authenticate or anonymous class. So even if we're logged out, we should still see this because we're right now at this point, we are exporting app, which all it's doing is rendering post page. So we need to bring in we need to use authenticate, and we need to pass in, we're going to follow this pattern that Jacob described. So we're going to say, we're going to use authenticate, post page, and login page. And we're going to do this, and we're going to set whatever this returns, which we now know is that anonymous class function. We're going to set that to a variable called, we'll call this one conditional, we'll stick with view, conditional view. So now, conditional view is a class component. So we don't need to render post page up here. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to render conditional view. And I think this is the way I'm going to change the README instructions to set it up more like this. This is how we would see it happen more in actual actual projects. So this should be working. Yep. If we go to application and we clear user and refresh our page, we should get to the login page. Okay, does this way make more sense to you guys? Ah, yes. Okay, cool. Hey, I love Jimmy Fallon. He's the best. Okay, cool. Thank you for sticking with me as we are growing together. I'm learning new things as an instructor and as a curriculum writer. So this is awesome. I like where we've ended with this, and I think this will help future cohorts. So thank you, my guinea pigs. You guys are amazing for sticking through that project time yesterday. But yeah, we'll definitely go into this kind of a flow in the project. I think this will be a lot better. And honestly, yesterday's lesson and project may turn into less of a let's focus on implementing a higher order component to let's learn about some other patterns like context, render props, and a couple things like that, but not actually dive deep into those advanced things. So this may end up being different in the future anyways. I enjoy HOCs. I do not like that you guys jump into it on week 2. So you guys are champs. Awesome job pushing through and sticking through the craziness yesterday. All right, let's take a little break. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay, can we see Authenticate.js again real quick? So here is Authenticate. So Authenticate takes in 2 components. So you have to invoke it twice. And then returns, once you invoke it twice, the return value is this class component. And this class component has state, and when the component mounts, it's going to check for whether or not you're logged in. It's going to check for that user key value pair in local storage. And if it's not there, then set state to logged in, else set state to, or logged in false, else set your state to logged in true. And then this is the conditional rendering part. So if this.state.logged in, then render your app. Ooh, this might get, let's see. Oh. You know what this is? We need to change the name of app because this is a little misleading. We're not actually rendering app. This is now posts page. Right? It worked here because these names up here are foobar banana names. You can name this whatever you want, and it just has to reflect down here. So the first component, when this was named app, the first component we were passing in was post page. So post page inside Authenticate was named app, which you can do it that way, but please don't. Keep naming conventions similar like this. So if we're logged in, then render post page. If we're not logged in, then render the login page. Okay, I'll leave this up for you. I'll drag my timer down here. Where's the location of the day? Albania. That's really cool. All right, I'll see you back and wait, pause. Were there any other questions? I did see other people writing. Oh, yeah. I'll get you the link for this. Okay. Now I'll see you back in 5 minutes. All right, come on back to your seats. We're going to take a look at, oh, my chair's stuck. There we go. We're going to take a look at the Bootstrap, React Strap really fast, and then jump into styled components. So, real fast. Where is, oh, I thought I saw the link here earlier. That's okay. React Strap. Let's take a look at this. And Bootstrap is, if you haven't heard of Bootstrap, it's a design library. I think we do some Bootstrap in Josh's class, right? You guys go over what that is. No? A little bit. It's a library of components that you can use in your projects. So if you use just Bootstrap with not in a React application, if you're just using it in some other application, then you would give an element a certain class name, and then Bootstrap would style that element for you. So with React and React Strap, you can do that in React, by the way. You don't have to use the React Strap library. React Strap is a library that has built a lot of components, the actual full components for you, and you can import these components, like you can see right here. You install React Strap into your project, and then you import whatever component you want, and then use it just like any other component. So, and then those components have certain props that you can send down that affect that component. So for example, they give you the prop types for each component that you might use in your project. So you can see what the prop name is called. So these ones all have the prop color. So you can see color on here, and then they give you the type so you know what to pass in. And then they also tell you the default. So on these alert components, you can see that they're all being passed a different color prop, and the library takes care of styling that based on what string you pass into the color prop. This would also take a class name prop, so you can pass a class name down and write your own CSS for it. An is open prop, so you can pass in a Boolean, and to actually close that prop maybe sooner than it would close with how React Strap is doing it, or let's see, there's transition if you want to do some kind of transition animation for your alerts. You can pass that in, tags, toggle, close class name, etc. So this is, let me pass this to you. This is React Strap. Woohoo! Yay for React Strap. Let's take a look at a couple more components, and then we'll move into styled components. So buttons are a popular thing to use other libraries for. Again, this button component is imported from React Strap, and then just in your JSX, you use it. Capital letter means it's a custom component. Doesn't mean that you built that custom component, but it is a custom component that you're using from the React Strap library. So these all have colors, the color property as well. Looks like there's a few other things on here. So you can pass in an on-click function. So you pass in an on-click callback function, and it'll work just like as if this were a normal button component. Inner ref, if you want to grab the reference type or the reference off of there and do something direct with some direct DOM manipulation. Size, so we could do some sizing. It's too bad they don't let you just edit right inside here. That would be really cool. Yeah, active. So if you pass in false for active, then it would be a disabled button. So you can start to see, like, hey, if I want to build an application really quickly and you don't want to take the time to style a bunch of things and kind of go granular to the granular level on all that kind of stuff, maybe you use React Strap, bring that into your project, and just use their components. Drop downs and carousels and a button group, button drop down. Breadcrumbs is a popular thing, right? Jumbotron. So that's like this big area at the top of your website or something. Modals are tough. So just let someone else build it for you. Yay. You could, and they let you do something inside it. Spinners, got all sorts of spinners here. Ooh, fancy growing spinner. So lots that you can do with this library. Just import the component, give it its the right properties. For example, this is passing dark as a property. Dark equals true. And it makes it a dark table. Striped rows, so this is table striped. Bordered table, table bordered. You could do table bordered striped dark, and it would combine all three of those and make a dark table that's bordered and striped. Wonder what would happen if you passed in borderless and border. So if you want to use this, just jump right into here and look at their examples. Oftentimes when I use libraries like this, I'll just copy over their complete example into my code and then change the inside stuff. And this one's interesting because it uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 components from React Strap. So you start with your card, and that wraps your card image, card body, card title, card subtitle, card text, and a button. Not sure what each of those do, but it sounds like it would be good if you want to use the card to use all of those inside there. Like, you don't have to use the card image. I'm sure everything would flow to the top if you didn't do an image there. Ooh, lots of prop types. Oh, these are card link prop types, So this prop types, these properties tell you the prop types for every element that you can use inside a card. So you can use cards, you can have a card body inside a card, columns, card deck, card footer, whole bunch of components that you can bring in to use for a card. So that's cool. Okay, fun. Yay, React Strap. We're flying today. Woohoo! Oh yeah, so about this, overriding default bootstrap stuff is tough. Yeah, so just be careful. One thing, if you're on your buttons and you want to change your warning button to be a little bit different and do some of your own styling on it, it can get a little bit hairy with overriding bootstrap styles. They're very much like, it will be our way, and you're going to have to work really hard to make it your own. So that's a good segue into a library that is much nicer, and that is styled components. Awesome. So who can tell me like a brief one sentence description of the styled components library? Okay, it's CSS and JS. What does that give us? Like, why would we want to use styled components? What are your thoughts? Oh, that's cool. Cool way to think about it. I like that. Yep, this helps save us from doing a CSS file for every little component. It gives us components inside of our component that allow us to style CSS inside the same JavaScript file. Yeah, that's a really nice thing to have. Library that allows you to include CSS in your JavaScript so that there's 0% chance of leakage. Yes, this is a big, oh, hi Josh. This is a big deal right here. That right now, without using CSS and JS, if you're just using a .css file, your styling rules can definitely leak to other components, even if it's not imported to that other file. Tag template literals, yeah, to create stylized components in JavaScript. So we're going to look at this because this is new syntax, crazy stuff, but really cool. Conditional CSS, I like this one. This, yeah, we'll talk about the coolness of this part. It's super useful. Thank you. Luckily, it's more useful than your comment. Oh, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Man, I'm lucky that I don't have like the worst reviews ever because that was rude. I apologize. Now I feel bad. Dang it. Okay. It makes your component file a lot longer and have more lines. All right. It makes your CSS file have 0 lines. Yay. You can pass props to it like a Boolean from the state. Yep. Super cool. We'll see an example of that. Never have to change VS tabs again. Woohoo. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we're going to, is this a question? Who can create themes without preprocessor? Nice. It calls template literals for a function which uses the style library to render styles on a component defined in JavaScript. Yeah, good. A solid description right here. Nice. So let's open up a new sandbox, and you guys open up this with me. Let's do this together. So go to Code Sandbox. Let's start a new thing. Okay, let's, we're just gonna stay right here in this file. Let's add 2 buttons on this. And let's do like person. Astronaut, perfect. Oh, can I not? I should be able to just do it. There we go. Hello there, from our astronaut friend. Okay, add another button, and we'll call this moon. Let's go see if there's a moon. Oh, I can't search. Oh, there we go, moon. Perfect. Okay, nice. Our beautiful buttons that don't do anything and look really ugly, except the emojis inside there. So we're going to use styled components to make this 10 times cooler. So first thing we have to do is bring styled components into our project. So we're going to add a dependency, and we're going to look for styled components. Yay, step 1 is done. Oh, our buttons are still not cool. Dang it. More work. All right, getting started. All you have to do is install it, and then you're ready to go. So our first styled component, we're gonna make our first styled component. Let's say you want to create a simple and reusable button. Hey, we've got 2 buttons. That's exactly what I want to do. Component that you can use throughout your application. There should be a normal version and a big and primary version for the important buttons. Okay, this is what it should look like when rendered. This is a live example. Click on them. Oh, hello. All right, first let's import styled components and create a styled button. So we're going to import styled from styled components. So you'll see me do different patterns with my imports, by the way. If anything comes from a dependency package, then I usually group all of those together up here. And then I do 1 space for like my custom component from, and then whatever my custom component is, and then styles at the bottom. And then these, like your custom components, some companies and teams really like you to keep those alphabetical. That is up to you and the team. All right, so we've imported styled from styled components. Let's go back here and see what's next. Okay, then we've imported styled components. We're going to create a styled dot button. Okay, so we're going to say const button equals styled dot button, and then put the 2 little ticks up here right after that. So, all right, we're going to do this outside our app function, by the way, because we're building a new component. We don't want this inside our app component. So const button equals styled. We're going to call that we just imported dot button. Now, and then the 2 tick marks. Now, if we were to console log this, then we would see that same object. Remember day 1, that object that we saw when we created a component? We're going to see this is wrapped a little bit differently because it's from styled components, and but I just want you to see that this is we have created a component at this point. You can explore that, all those different things later. Okay, so we've created a component. Yay! So let's go take a look at this. This button variable here is now a React component that you can use like any other React component. This unusual backtick syntax is a new JavaScript feature called a tagged template literal. So I'm going to click on this link, template literals. So tag template, a more advanced form of template literals are tagged templates. Tags allow you to parse template literals with a function. The first argument of a tag function contains an array of string values. The remaining arguments are related to the expressions. In the end, your function can return your manipulated string. So let's look at this down here. Okay, so in this example, we've got a function called myTag, and it takes in a string and then any interpolated values that you are passing into that string. So this is crazy. When you want to invoke myTag, you pass in, or you use the backtick instead of parentheses. So this syntax right here, let me zoom in, sorry. This, oh, way too far, there we go, okay. There's our function, here's our function invocation. This is invoking a function. It's so cool. And what's really cool about this is we can pass this whole string in with these this interpolated string to our function with these variables, and these variables are broken out into other arguments. So we don't have to worry about all that. We're not going to get into this, but we're going to see this syntax as we create these components. So when we look at our project right now, we are invoking a method, a button function, by doing that. So cool. Okay, so now let's see what kind of argument we can pass to this function call. Remember, interpolated strings can be multi-lined, right? So that's going to help us with our syntax to keep everything nice and tidy looking. All right. You know how you can call functions with parentheses like this? Well, now you can also call functions with backticks. Woohoo! Okay. If you render our lovely component now, just like any other component like this is what you get. So let's go ahead and render. All we're gonna do is change our lowercase b to a capital B. Well, it should have worked. What? Oh man, what is going on? Maybe, let's just try doing one above here. Doesn't have anything in it? Nope. Okay. Well, that's not cool. Are my emojis doing something weird? Const button equals style dot button. We console logged it, and that was a thing. Spelling's correct. All right, this is weird. Yeah, I've got styled component instead of components. No, I think, yeah, it's styled components with an S. So I've got the correct package in. Is it working for you guys or is it broken for everybody? Yours works? Add styles. Okay. Okay. We won't freak out yet. This isn't freak out time yet. So, oh, let's see. This is what you get. It renders a button. That's not very nice though. Okay, so it is working. You know what we should do is we should open up a new window and inspect it to see if it's a thing. So if we go to React, then we see, aha, okay, style.button. It is working. Yay, mine's working. Cool. All right, take a deep breath, Dustin. It's okay. For some reason, I thought that this had more styling, like some default styling, than what mine was showing, but it really doesn't. All right, it renders a button. Woohoo! We can do better than this. Let's give it a bit of styling and tickle out the hidden beauty within. Well, okay, we'll just do that. Let me give you guys this. So there is the styling we're going to add to our button. Oh, we're not adding it, we're tickling it out of our button. Like so. Ah, there we go. Much better. Now that we tickled the old button there, looks a lot better. Okay, so let's take a look at this stuff that we just passed to it. This is like exactly what we would see in our CSS, right? We've got a border radius, border, color, margin, padding. These are all things that we would do with CSS normally. But instead, we're just passing this in as a string to this function. So pretty cool, but like nothing to get too excited for, right? I mean, there's not much of a difference between putting it right here and putting it inside our styles.css sheet. So let's go see if there's something cooler we can do. Okay, as you can see, styled components lets you write actual CSS in your JavaScript. This means you can use all the features of CSS you use and love, including, but by far not limited to, media queries, pseudo selectors, nesting, etc. That's awesome. The last step is that we want to define what a primary button looks like. To do that, we also import CSS from styled components and interpolate a function into our template literal, which gets past the props of our component. Okay, a lot of words there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this one step at a time. We're going to take the CSS and import that. So now we want to import styled, comma, CSS in curly brackets from styled components. Okay. So then below, we're going to interpolate a function into our template literal. So this is our template literal, and we're going to use interpolation, and so we're going to do the $, curly braces, right? We're going to interpolate some JavaScript. Okay. And what goes into this? Well, it said that we're going to interpolate a function into our string. So we can see a function here, right? So let's pass in this function that, oh, this is kind of crazy. It takes in props. So props, function, okay. we're going to check to see if this is a primary button, if props.primary is true. This is a shortcut. This double ampersand thing is a shortcut to a shortcut to a shortcut. It's a shortcut to doing primary or props.primary question mark. If it's true, then do this styling right here. Else do nothing. So if you ever find yourself doing this ternary type statement where if something is true, you do something, otherwise just do nothing, you can shorten that to double ampersand. I don't even know if this has a name. If it does, someone will have to let me know. But this basically does the same thing. If there is props.primary, if this is true, then do this. Otherwise, do nothing. Actually, what this is doing, this is just like our if checks, right? So something like true and true. If this were a JavaScript expression, then we would see that this is true, so we would move on to our next thing, right? If this is false, we don't ever move on to our next thing because this is false, so we're just going to return false. So just like this, if this is true, move on to the next thing. If props.primary is false, we don't even move on to, then this never gets touched at all. So a quick note on that. All right, so how can we use this in our component? Here we're saying that when the primary property is set, we want to add more CSS to our component. In this case, change the background and color. That's all, we're done. Take a look at our finished component. So let's go look at how these two buttons are used. We've got one, it's a normal button, and then we have another button with the primary prop passed to it. So let's go past primary to one of our buttons that we've rendered. And it adds that extra CSS. Have we talked about this syntax without passing anything in next to it? I don't remember if that was with you guys or the last class. Oh, why did I not send that? Sorry. My bad. Okay, we haven't talked about this. This is super simple. It's the exact same as doing primary equals true. So if you ever pass anything in where it's just where it's true, then you can just shorthand it like that. So if you see this in the React strap stuff, we saw this somewhere. We saw this outline. So this is saying outline equals true. Block. This is saying block equals true. Active equals true. Disabled equals true. So anytime you see a prop on a custom React component without an equals and some value, whether it's a string or curly braces, then you're just passing in true. So the second button gets props.primary equals true passed into it, and therefore adds this extra CSS to our button. Woohoo, you did it. Yay. Fun? You guys like this? What are your thoughts? Pretty cool? Yep, primary is a banana name. Not quite sure yet. Like, I mean, there's other ways to do this. Do we need all this stuff? We're going to look at a couple more examples of some cool stuff we can do right after this break. Oh, good question. So you guys finish typing. We'll answer a couple quick questions and then take our break. As it mentioned, we can do some nested stuff like, I don't know, and hover. And we'll say padding, we'll change the padding to 0.5 EM and 2 EM. Do I need to, I don't need double, right? Should be able to do this. Maybe my syntax is off. No space. Space. What space? Oh. Yay, there we go. Woohoo! Da, 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 da. Okay, great question. So yep, you can do all that kind of stuff. Isn't there a shortcut for passing props with the same name, like banana equals banana? There is not. So when you're passing props, you can't. That is only when you've got an object that has the property name is the same as the value. So for example, if we had a const apple equals apple, and then we had const fruit object, we could do apple, and that would shorthand apple is apple. We'll say this banana, because this apple refers to this, not the string. So we can shorthand on an object, but unfortunately, we can't do that on props. I would love it if we could do that on props, but that's not a thing. I'm not sure if primitives return. Was there a question about that? Can you do on click? Yeah, you can do on click on here just fine, and it should run for you. And then last question. Oh, let's see. Would you use this in combination of less or SAS? I think it is. I don't know. We'll have to look to see which one it accepts. Well, let's do this. If we take these away and it works, then it's in combination with less. Okay, nope, it's SAS. That makes sense because less actually looks at the tablature, looks how far things are indented in, and I don't think that this is going to do that. Okay, what exactly makes a component a custom component? So when I say, this is just Dustin, this is the React gospel of Dustin, not of React. So when I say custom component, I just mean something that's not like a normal HTML element. So like H1, H2. Button to me would be a custom component. These components up here would be custom components. I don't know that I would say it like that in a group of seasoned React developers, but that's how I communicate it to you guys. Like I would say these are all custom components, just so we're thinking like, okay, someone built a component called carousel, and I can use that in my JSX. So that's what I mean. Great question. Sorry I haven't clarified that. Okay, let's take a break. We're going to take a break before we get to any more questions. No more questions. Haha. Goodbye. See you in 5. All right. Last part of class here. So if we look at something like our Instagram code sandbox, and we go to like our login CSS, then we could take, let's see, what is this affecting? This is affecting the login form. So I'll go to my login form, and oh, this form is coming from React So instead of this coming from React I could import styled from styled components and create a form and do style.form. Now I know, what the heck, that was weird. I know I don't have styled and I already have form up here, so it's yelling at me. But I could just go into my CSS file, copy that from there, paste it into here, and then replace my form. So we're pretending this was a lowercase form f, right? I would now replace that with a capital F and use this component for my form. This styled, let's back out of all of this that we just did. Okay. So my styled function here is can take, or it has a method on it. This object has a method on it for any of the HTML elements that we would want to use, like H1. Well, they're huge. H6, paragraphs, divs, span. What else? Section. So you can make whatever element that you want. And part of our project today, or the project for today, is to go through and everywhere you have a CSS file with some CSS in it, is to pull it out of the CSS file and build styled components in your JavaScript file. So .user, we would go to comment.js and find .user is a span. So I would create const maybe user span equals styled dot span. Whoa, span. And then go back to my CSS and put those two styling rules into here. And then instead of saying span, I would have user span. So that's going to be the project for today. There's just one other cool thing that I want to show you with styled components. And then we're going to just look at a quick example, one last quick example as well. So if we go to documentation, we can see that they've got some really good documentation here. We can look at some of the basics that you can do with style components, advanced stuff, or go straight to the API reference. So let's look at the basics here. We've got their motivation behind making this, how to get started, adapting based on props. We've seen that, right? So props.primary. Now they're using a ternary statement. So if props.primary is true, then your color is going to be white. Otherwise, this pink color. So we've seen that. Let's go. Let's see, we're here adapting based on props. Let's look at extending styles. Okay, so quite frequently you might want to use a component, but change it slightly for a single case. For example, what if we have our normal button, but we also want a tomato button? Because why would we not want a tomato button, right? Gotta have your tomato button. So let's say that we want a tomato button. We won't call this one primary. Tomato. Is there a tomato in here? Haha, perfect. Okay, so now we've got our tomato button. Let's see what they are doing here. So now you can pass in an interpolated function and change based on some props, but that's a lot of effort for overriding the styles just for this one single button. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be overriding styles and write all of this if we're only going to have one tomato button in our application. Okay, so styled components. What do we do then? Well, to easily make a new component that inherits the styling of another, just wrap it in the styled constructor. Here we use the button from the last section and create a special one, extending it with some color-related styling. Okay, so a new component based on button, but with some override styles. All right, so we know that, as we can see right here, styled is a function that we are passing a component to, right? We built a component. We're going to pass that component into a function. It's going to return a new component with some extended functionality. What is that called? A higher order component. What? Higher ordered tomato. Yes. See, aren't you so glad we went through HOCs yesterday so that you could look at this one piece of code and be like, hey, I know exactly what's going on right there. So you're welcome. So let's build out our tomato button. So we're going to have const tomato button, and we're going to call styled, give it our old button, invoke it again with the style overrides we want, which are going to be color tomato. Wait, is that really a thing? And border color tomato. No way. Then instead of rendering our button, we're going to render our tomato button. That is like literally a color name. Nice. Now we've got a tomato button. So that's really cool. You can use that pattern to extend styling. As it says, extending styles. Let's see if there's anything else we want to pass over here. Animations. There's going to be cool animation stuff. If you are into animations, you can do that. Past props. Just going to see what. Okay, so we talked about that. Coming from CSS. All right, let's see if there's anything in the advanced that we would want to just look at real quick. So theming is really cool with styled components. If you would like to kind of get into that, then and make a theme, then you can use the theme provider wrapper component. You'll just have to come and look through the documentation here because we don't really have time to go over how this would work. Refs, if you are dealing with refs, then you'll need to look over the refs part here. I think that's about all we need to look at this. Okay, so last thing I want to do is pull over this code sandbox. And refresh, reload. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to give this to you guys as well. I'll jump onto this code sandbox. What I want you to do is, well, our goal is to change the header color based on what button we're clicking on. So let's look at how this is set up real quick, and then there's only one thing you need to change. Well, you're going to need to add a few different things, but only in one spot. So our class, ooh, look at this new syntax. Ooh, this is fun. So we've got a class component without a constructor that has a state object. I think at this point, I'm okay if you guys follow this syntax now. So you can take out your constructor and just use state equals object. And that's the same as putting this dot state inside your constructor. Okay, if you ever need anything else in your constructor though, then add your constructor and throw state back inside there. All right, so our class component has state with the color blue. When we click on a button, and later you can go through and make these button styled components if you'd like. When we click on a button, it's going to run the update color function, and each of these have a class name on them. Okay, so update color runs prevent default, and then this is kind of cool. So it sets state, so it changes our color, state.color, with event.target.class name. So this will change to green or red or yellow or blue. All right, so now let's take a look at our header. So our header is a styled component that is an H1 element. And right now, the only styling we have for this header is that the color is blue. But if you notice down here, we're passing in whatever this value is as props inside our header here. So if you want this, the color of this to match, then we can use our interpolated string. So somewhere inside here, I'm not going to say where, we're going to use this syntax, props, function, and then do something. And props.color will be available inside this function. Okay, so take a few minutes. If you don't, if you can't get this to work, that's totally fine. I'll do it when we come back together. I'll show you my solution. So yeah, take a couple minutes and see if you can get this to work inside this function to get this header to change colors. Good luck. We'll be right back. Okay, if you haven't completed this, that's just fine. We're going to take a look at a couple implementations here and then finish up for the day. So let's see. We're going to go into styled. Oh, very nice. Yep, so bring in CSS and then we've got our color here, and then our props function here, and we're going to extend our CSS styling like this. Woohoo! Nice. Awesome. We could, since color starts out as blue, we could at this point, I think, just remove color and it should work. Yep. Okay, awesome. Looks good. We'll see. That's probably what most of these implementations are. So implementations look like. We'll just see if there's a couple. Okay, so very similar, minus the color prop. Looking at random ones here. Oh, nice. So this is a little bit different. Instead of saying that if, or doing my interpolated function right away, and then setting the full property here, this one has the property and then the function that returns just the color. So that's cool. This could be shortened to a one-liner. Yay. Like that. Awesome. Cool. Great job, guys. That's really good. My implementation was a little bit different only because I knew the colors. So you'll notice that these colors aren't quite green, red, and yellow. The CSS green, red, and yellow. So I did the actual colors. So what I was saying is I gave it all colors here. And so if props.color equals blue, then I'm going to do this. Otherwise, I'll do null. So every time state updates, then there's going to be 3 color equals null properties. And the one that actually has the color on it will override everything else. Lots of different ways you can do this. Styled components are fun, and this project for today definitely a lot easier than the rest of this week. So today is kind of a just relaxed day / catch up on any other missing to-dos you have for the InstaClone project. So let's take a look at day 4. Our focus is to be able to use styled components to add functional styles to your React components. That was from yesterday. So our setup, just wherever you're at in your app, as long as you're at a working point where it renders to something to the screen, you can start on today's tasks. So today we're going to try and replace all the styles you've previously written, change everything to be a styled component, except where you need to reference your icon class names. Refactor search bar to styled components, and then it kind of goes through that. Refactor your post container component to only use styled components, and then kind of walks through all of those. Now move on to your comment section and get rid of any CSS you don't need. By now, you're a pro at using styled components. Let's see. Cool. And we hope you are armed with the ammo necessary to choose whether you or not you like using it as opposed to vanilla CSS or preprocessor. We don't want you to believe that there's never a time or place for those things, but now you've got a lot of tools in your tool belt, and you can, if you like one over the other, then you can use that. If there's a situation where using one that you don't like as much is more appropriate, then you now have the knowledge to use it. Now is the time to step back and look at what you've accomplished this week. Start from the day one README file and see what tasks were there. Think about how we asked you to approach the problem. Think about the different components you have built. Did you separate out your components array from the rest of the application state? Did you like that? What advantages did you gain? React is a very powerful tool, and the next steps in learning about the React ecosystem will revolve around other libraries that we're going to bring in. Stretch problem for today is listed here. So yeah, I think the point of what we're trying to say here is look back at where you started this week alone, much less like 2 weeks ago. Where were you when we came in on day one of React? And look at what you've created once you have this project done. You've come such a long way from React day one. And I want you guys to recognize that. I know that it's tough, and at times students often get down on themselves. And that's fine, that's expected, as long as you're also keeping in mind how much you've learned and how far you've come. So maybe today, or maybe it's sometime this weekend, take just a few minutes to kind of look back and think about what you've learned and this journey that you've taken the last 2 weeks. And I think you'll be pretty excited about where you've come. So with that being said, good luck today. Enjoy today. Make this fun, because styled components are pretty fun. And we are traveling this weekend. We're going up north to visit my parents, and there is a storm moving in. So we are actually leaving. We found this out last night. We're leaving earlier than we thought we were going to leave. So I won't be here for the Q&A today. But we're trying to find someone. Michael Hacker is in charge of it today, so it'll either be him or it'll be someone else that we find to come talk to you about props. So I apologize I can't be there today, but if props are still a concern with anybody, then I'll find time over the next week to do another Q&A on that subject. So have a great weekend. You guys are awesome. Enjoy your 3-day break. Work hard tomorrow in the afternoon to get that Monday's material done. And I'll see you guys on Tuesday.